We've now looked at the vessels that make up this system, and we've looked at one of the organs that make up this system, the lymph node. But now let's move on to some other organs that make up this system, specifically the tonsils, the thymus gland, and the spleen. We'll start by listing the functions of the spleen. We'll move this individual off to the side and take a closer look at the spleen itself. The spleen has the splenic artery going into it and the splenic vein coming out of it. Within the spleen, we have this structure, where on the outside we have a capsule to the spleen. We have red pulp and white pulp, which we'll look at in a moment, and then we have venous sinuses. What you might notice is that the spleen actually kind of looks like a lymph node, just much larger in size. What the spleen is involved in is actually filtering blood rather than lymph. So we have the splenic artery going into the spleen, bringing in blood that then gets filtered out by traveling through the arteries, down to capillaries, and into the red pulp and the white pulp that make up that central portion of the spleen. The red pulp and white pulp are areas where there are immune system cells. Again, we'll look at those a little bit later on, but that are there to do a couple of things. They filter the blood by removing any pathogens, viruses and bacteria, and also removing any old, worn out blood cells, specifically red blood cells that get recycled after approximately 120 days of life. We discussed this a little bit earlier in the blood, and so here's the actual area of the body that filters the blood in order to remove those old cells. So zooming in again on this person's body, we want to then explain the role of the thymus within the immune system. The thymus gland is located in the mediastinum of the thoracic cavity, just above the heart. It plays a crucial role in the development of the immune system before birth and in the first few months after birth. After puberty, it starts to shrink, but it remains active throughout life because its major role is to secrete the hormone called thymosin. Thymosins promote the proliferation and maturation of lymphocytes that we'll look at later in this unit called T cells. Tonsils are partially encapsulated lymph nodes within the throat area. They filter tissue fluid contaminated by pathogens that enter the body through the mouth and through the nose. Let's take a closer look at the tonsils here. There are actually three sets of tonsils. The first are the pharyngeal tonsils. You may have heard these before being called the adenoids. They are located near the opening of the nasal cavity in the upper pharynx. In our image here, the palate or the roof of the mouth has been cut away a little bit in order to see the location. The palatine tonsils are small masses of lymphoid tissue located at the opening of the oral cavity into the pharynx. The lingual tonsils are located at the back of the tongue, lingual referring to tongue. So as we work through this initial part of the unit on the lymphatic system, we've touched base on a number of points that referred to the immune system because these two are interrelated. As mentioned earlier, the lymphatic system contains lymph that may pick up pathogens, bacteria, and viruses that then get filtered out via lymph nodes as they travel through this system.